tihei uri uri, tihei nako nako, ka tū haha te rangi e tūnei, ka tau haha te pape e takoto nei, ka tau haha te matuku mai a Rarotonga. Ko iaruku hia mana wa pauroto, ko iaruku hia mana wa pauwaho. Whakatina kia tina te more i Hawaiki. E pupu ana hoki, e wawau ana hoki, tarewa tū ki te rangi. Au e kia eke panuku, eke tangaroa, whāno, haramai te toki, haumi e, hui e, tā iki e. Tuatahi mai, māku e mihi atu ki tō tātou nei matu i te rangi. Nāna nei te tīmatanga me te whakootinga o ngā mea katoa. Mai te rangi ki te whenua me mihi katika ki runga ki tō tātou nei kuini, nā waihono i te pō. Ki tōna whaia anō hoki a te whai, o tira ngā pāhara keke o te kāhui ariki i raru i te kapua pauri, rire haupai marire. Kei ngā mate o ngā pāpāringa o te moano o tauranga, kei ngā marae maha o Ngāti Ranginui, o Ngāti Rangi, o Ngāti Pūkenga, huri no te motu, haere koutou. Ko pōhiri tio koutou nei tini ngironge o ki te huinga o te kahurangi no reira ka ki ake rā koutou ki te rangi tūhaha, i reira koutou tūpakari ai, i reira koutou tūpakari ai. No reira e kau e te wai e kau i te wai e kau ki ngā wai tauranga, ki tuapiro, ki tō tātou nei tūpuna whare, ki ngā kuri a whārei, ki muri wai anō hoki. No reira ka huri taku mata ki whakamārama, ki tawhiti nui, kia kahi, kia māka. Ka titiro whakararo, kia were hiko, kia te rina, ki runga o paparoa. No reira, e huri ana au ki pautū te rangi, o tira, ki takurua, ki māpihi. No reira, ka huri au ki tū te reinga, no reira tō tātou nei tūpuna, tū maira, kia hine kura. Ka huri au ki ka rere au ki ngā tai o te awa tipua, o te awa o te wairoa, ki kahutapu, ki te hoata. No reira hi teki aku waiwai ki hangarau, ki te ohaki. Ka tai au ki runga o huria ki tō tātou nei tūpuna tamatea pōkai whenua me ona hoa e rua, iwi pupu, ihu parapara. No reira, e huri taku mata ki runga o tamatea ki tahuri wakenui, ki a taumata, ki tō tātou nei tūpuna whare ki reira, ko te rei nui ao. Ka titiro ki te awa waimapu, ki kahu whaia, ki ruahine, o tira ki te kaupapa tawhito. Ka kau au i runga ki roto i te wai o waimapu, ka tai au ki te tāhuna o rangataua, he paru ki te kai he taniwha te tangata. Ka piki ake au ki runga o hairini, ki tō tātou tūpuna a Ranginui me urutomo. No reira, Ngāti Ranginui, haere mai, rarau mai rā. Turuki, paneke, turuki, paneke, hara mai te toki, haumi e, hui e, tā iki e.
E te ti, e te tā, e nā karanga maha huri no e te moana o tauranga, o tira kia koutou katoa e noho ana ki tā wāhi, no ngā kukunga o te ao. Nau mai, piki mai ki Uenukurangi Vision Ranginui. Nau mai hara mai ki tēnei a tāmira o te zui me ki. Ko te kaupapa e haere nei, kei konei te pai kōrero no Ngāti Ranginui. Hei whakaputa atu i wā tātou nei, rātou nei moi a. No reira nau mai, piki mai. Whau tēnei ko Justin Murray e te whānau. Welcome to our Uenukurangi Vision Ranginui Zoo. Kau tēnei ko Justin Murray no Ngai Tamarawaho no Ngai Tūkairangi. I am your kai tui kōrero for the next hour or so. And we encourage you to, come online, tell your whānau to register for this webinar. But I mua I tērā, anei taku co-host, tēnā koe Suari.
Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Ko Suari Rau tōku nei ingoa, talofa lawa hoki, wai te whaki sidekick o Justine tēnei ahiahi. Kia ora koutou.
Kia ora, tēnā koe Suari. We are here te whānau at the Mount Life Surf Saving Club. Kei te pūtake o te maunga, ko Mauau, it's no mātou te whiwhi, kei konei mātou. But Ngāti Ranginui iwi is home to a remarkable group of leaders who have made significant contributions across various fields, championing our whānau, community and culture. Together, these leaders embody the spirit of Ngāti Ranginui, making impactful contributions that resonate with our community, whānau, hapu and iwi, and beyond. It's our privilege to have these wonderful pai kōrero here tonight. Tēnā koutou.
Kia ora,
It's my privilege and honour to introduce another plucky sidekick of my own, actually, is the chair of the Runanga, so Charlie Rahiri, Ngāti Ranginui, Ngāti Rangi, Ngāti Pao, Te Runanga or Ngāti Ranginui chair. Charlie has held many senior positions within local government and central government, including Te Puni Kōkiri, Te Arawhiti. He's a good top chap, this Charlie. He is the chair of Te Kupunga Hauora o Ngāti Ranginui as well, and Te Kapako Ngāti Ranginui Charlie. Tēnā koe.
Tēnā koe.
Mai te kauta o te marae, ki te akomanga. Mai te tari puari, ki te atamira o te matatini. From the kitchen to carrying out the karanga on the marae, to boardrooms, to the classroom, and to the pinnacle of te ao kapahaka to te matatini. The writer of many songs, Mauria, Nā toko nau mai haramai. Tēnā koe.
To who left is the handsome, the majestic and wonderful blessing of Te Rangi Māori e Rerenui, Ngāti Rangi, Ngāti Ranginui, Te Arawa, sorry, been with the Northerners. There's the founding partner of Aurere Capital, a Māori-led investment and asset management firm. He is working in and has an applied Masters in Finance and is a distinguished, good chap from the University of Victoria. So he studied in Wellington. Yes.
Tēri tapu Alan, Ngāti Ranginui, Ngāti Rangi, Ngāti Tūwharetoa and Te Rarawa. Kiri tapu is all about shaping policy around climate change, economic development and energy sovereignty, which I'm really keen to know about a bit more. Currently Director of KLA Limited, former Minister of Justice, Emergency Management, Conservation and MP for the East Coast, and Kaiaia Te Rākau o Te Ture, a lawyer as well. Kiri tapu is passionate about empowering whānau, hapu and iwi. E kiri nau mai haramai.
Tēnā koe.
Kia ora. So we have another panel who is physically not here. Nō Ngāti Ranginui Nai Te Rangi, writer, filmmaker with a passion for telling stories, Chelsea Winstanley, created Matiwa Media with Tweedy Waititi, the dynamic partnership they brought us, the Māori language adaptations of Moana, The Lion King, Koko, Encanto, and in a few weeks' time, Moana 2. Chelsea is obviously not here, but she will share her thoughts with us in a taped, pre-recorded kōrero. Okay, our panel. How are you feeling, Pai?
Sweaty palms.
We got through that intro. So a warm-up question for you, our Pai kōrero. 30 seconds each. As an uri of Ngāti Ranginui, where is that one place here in Tauranga Moana that makes you feel energized and why?
Starting.
Any order.
All right, I'll jump in first because we're right here. It's Mowal. It's the nature's cathedral. So I go there to pray. I go there to have karakia. I go there to listen to the birds. It always makes me hoha when I see people with headphones on at Mowal, because if you take them off and listen to the birds and the trees, you might hear something and learn something you never knew. So Mowal is that for me.
Ka pai.
I think for me, it's tamatea poka whenua, being able to be in the embrace of my own tupuna, to soak in what was, what is, and what needs to be. He provides that shelter and that sanity, especially in times where there's been lots of reflection. You know, like many of my other kinsmen here from their own marae as well. So definitely my ancestral house.
Nice.
Kia ora, I'm going to copy Charlie here and say Mowal as well. I work in a field where I'm constantly hearing people's opinions at hui. I'm going all over the nation, and I find that being on Mowal allows me to decompress, but also allows me to realize what's important, which is our people, our whenua, our moana, and our identity.
For me, it's rarupua, and being able to look out, I guess, across the moana, to look out to Motohua, Matakana, Mowal, and I guess just remember where our people have come from, where they rested, where they lay, and of course my cousins up and down. We have a good time up there as well.
Kia ora, tēnā koutou. So I suppose to think of those places that are dear to you, we're here with Uenukurangi Vision Ranginui. And we're going to call on you again, Charlie, to explain kia te kaupapa o Uenukurangi. Can you tell us a bit more about this kaupapa?
I'll go right back to the name Uenukurangi, which incidentally was gifted to us by one of our prominent kaumātua back in 2016. Tawharangi Nuku was the chair at the time, and we were in an AGM with our 3 entities, and they had 3 visions, and so it was talking about visioning for us as a people, and Uenukurangi was the name that was given. Now, Uenukurangi was the mauri that was placed by Tamatea Arikinui when Te Wakataki Timu arrived right here, right where we're sitting. And some say it was a totem, some say it was kai, some say it was a karakia, but whatever it was, it imbued us as a people to this place. To Tauranga, to Mauao, following the placing of, or the Uenukurangi being placed at Tirikawa, they climbed Mauao, and from there, Tamatea Arikinui named a number of places here, but also saw the opportunity that was here, the opportunity for prosperity. And so we earlier talked about blueprints. Our blueprint for our status here, for prosperity, was created way back then when the waka arrived, when Takitimu arrived here. So we've taken that name Uenukurangi. This is the second round of Uenukurangi in terms of visioning for us. The last one was in 2019, and we had COVID in between. And so it's important that we re-raise this kaupapa for us as a people, but ultimately it's about the unity of Ngāti Ranginui.
Ai, tēnā koe, Charlie. So, nā runga I tērā whakaaro, we're going to launch into that planting the prosperity, or that mauri, to today and what that looks like. So we describe perhaps what aspirations does Ngāti Ranginui have, and what do those success stories look like. So if we ask our panel, Soari, did you want to?
So that's our role and purpose with the panel tonight, is to canvass what that looks like. So the seeds of your success, so again, in the wider spectrum of things, there have been a couple of initiatives that we've undertaken, taking to the people, getting their stories and understanding what success looks like. So then we want to offer that to the panel tonight. So we've done a dinner, we're doing a webinar, and we have the research symposium coming up. That's the backdrop that this kind of mahi sits in. So just asking our panelists, what have been the seeds of your success in your particular fields, and how have you, where have you found them, and what were the drivers of those, that pathway that you've taken?
I suggest we start with Kiri Tapu.
Oh, hika. I was waiting for Charlie to start. Yeah, I guess it's an interesting one. I guess if I think about like the seeds of success, often just to reflect back, I guess, on various experiences that have led to now. So I think I've always been a real observer of what does good look like, and what does challenge look like. So if I go back to my younger 20s, it was spending a lot of time with Indigenous communities around the world and looking at their successes. How were they mobilizing? How were they getting traction, whether that was locally or internationally? In my latter 20s, it was working as a lawyer for hapu and iwi up and down the country. And you got to have this backdoor insight into, again, what does good look like? What does it look like to have good leadership and vision? And what are the challenges that are universal for us? We've all got things in our backyard that we always need to deal with. And how does good look like in pushing through those things to be able to create success, whatever that looks like? From a political background, again, it was looking through the backdoor lens. Who knew how to leverage the system for the best for their people? And I observed how there were some that could just really work the system. We all know our mana motu haki doesn't lie in that system, but it's an incredibly powerful tool for us to be able to hustle, essentially, resource, policy, etc. So if I think back and reflect, it was through experience, it was through observation, and breaking bread with people who had real clear vision.
Seeds of success. So before I talk about that, I just want to preface this with success is a very dynamic thing. Some days may be successful and some may not be. You may have a deal that goes really well. You may have a deal that goes horribly bad. However, success is not a point in time It's over a long, long period of time. And what keeps you committed to something over a long period of time and keep getting back up off the deck? It's doing something you care about for me. So I really have the privilege at the moment in that the vast majority of the investment advisory work I do is Māori economic development oriented. So I get to work with the likes of Waikato, Ngaitahu, Ngāti Maniapoto, and most of my conversations around what are our aspirations? How do we move forward? How do we use our endowments, our moana, our whenua, our access to infrastructure in order to push forward? And there are some challenges in doing that in a sustainable way. But it's because I care so much about those people, and I also wouldn't be back allowed in Hamilton if I wasn't delivering something positive for Waikato as well, that I strive every day to try and be the best that I can. When I began my career, which was as a 20-year-old financial analyst at Ernst & Young, it was my goal to be the best financial analyst in the world. And if I look forward to now, when I speak to iwi, it gives me comfort to not be presenting to them as just a Māori accountant. I want to be dealing with them as the best financial analysts they can possibly have so that we can push our people forward. So if you ask me what are seeds of success, it's finding something you care about, working with people you really care about so that you don't take non-progress as an answer. It keeps you getting out of bed and it gets you through those really, really tough inner hoha conversations. I probably had to work for about 12 years with arseholes in order to learn how to take hits. I'm not saying that I don't work with any arseholes at the moment, but I won't name them. But I
You learned.
Yeah, I learned a lot from those experiences.
It's fine though, 12 years.
Yeah, no,
Really
absolutely. And
long
I'll probably have to go back there, and a lot of that's about learning from those experiences. So seeds of success, finding your passion, working with people you care about.
Kia ora, tēnā koe rangi, Mauria.
Pai te pātai.
Ai.
Seeds of success. So I look at it from a cultural wealth perspective. Like many of us, we're part of a succession plan that was already built. And so one of the things that I strive from is being able to continue those legacies that have been left behind, but also to inform our descendants the importance of who they are and where they come from, whether it be here in Tauranga or outside, but being also to be able to provide the opportunities for them to become culturally wealthy within themselves. I've been composing for about 34 years now. And I think one of the successes, one of the successful seeds of that is our own history. It's about transferring knowledge into a narrative where our kids can grow up knowing who they are, from whom and whence they come from, as part of supporting this visionary of Uenukurangi moving forward. I don't always have the answers, I don't espouse to have the answers, but certainly working in collaboration with our hapu kinsmen and women, we can make a better cultural, wealthy environment for our kids moving forward. If we look at the state of our paipai, especially over, I guess, the last decade, that's certainly a focus from the mahi that I do and others that do the same sort of mahi within Tauranga Moana, within our iwi as well. So it's about instilling cultural wealth and validity into our descendants moving forward and letting our descendants take their cultural wealth and validity to new spaces.
Tēnā koe, Mauria. Charlie.
All of that.
Yeah.
But I think it's service to one another as well. I operate very much on a servant-based leadership model. Yeah, and I often say this: if service is below you, then leadership is beyond you. And when we are able to service one another, and that's premised on the fact that, you know, not many people know this, but many of my whānau do. When we grew up, we were poor, very poor, dirt poor. You know, and so wealth isn't success to me. I actually didn't have any goals for a number of years, and again, many of our whānau will know this. You know, made lots of bad choices, made lots of bad decisions, but took the opportunity to learn from them. When my children were born, when my boys were born, things changed. probably took me about 5 years to realize that. But I was always walking the pathway of realizing the aspirations of our ancestors, but they gave me the impetus and I guess the stark reality that we have to meet their expectations as well and make sure we leave something for them and for our boys, for our children, for my sons and for everyone else's children as well. If it's three things for me, it's that we maintain our defiance as a people. I'm very strong on that we're defiant in the face of anything that comes our way, that we're a proud people who never surrendered, who never gave up. And that's what I want to instill in my children, so it permeates through other children as well. I want us to have that cultural richness of who we are, knowing who we are and where we come from. And then thirdly, is I want us to be participants in society. I want us to be active participants in society, whether it's education, whether it's economics. And then finally, I think success for me is realizing that the people around you surround you with people that are better than you. And I think that's what stops us as a people. We try and do everything and think we're good at everything, and we're not. There are people
we burn out.
Yeah, that's right. And there are
Right.
people better than us at different things,
Yeah.
and don't be afraid. Bring them through, allow them those spaces. Well, that's probably not a good choice of words, but create spaces and enable.
Yeah. Just touching on, I suppose it becomes balancing that level of service and leadership that each of you are in that space. How do you manage things like whānau, stress levels, doing too many things at too many times and saying yes, and just on that level of mental wellness? If you can just touch on that. How do you balance it? Is it hard?
I'm feeling for my cousin at the moment because I've dragged her along here after a tormentous weekend preparing for Te Matatini.
Yeah.
I might go there. And
Please.
The short answer is it can't be hard. It has to be done. We probably all of us would have grown up in environments where our parents and our family were constantly contributing to tribal kaupapa, not just tribal, but churches, making cupcakes for tangis, all that sort of thing. So it's been all around us our whole life. And I would have only contributed 1% compared to those around me. So the short answer is, of course, it's hard, but it has to be done.
Kia ora, tēnā koe rangi. Any thoughts, Kiritapu?
Yeah, I think that that's a perfect articulation of what real leadership is. It's servant leadership. It's that genuine love for our people and throwing down anything and everything that you've got to be able to advance the aspirations that we have for us, and we love our people. I think that does come with a genuine risk of burnout, and it's easy to say yes, as you said, to everything under the sun. And for myself, I think that the biggest learning has been actually in falling and feeling the embrace of the fire to be able to reset and say, actually, what does wellness look like in a context of servant leadership? And being able to keep your feet on the ground, be able to go out into the water and, watch your face, being able to have fun and joy in the face of leadership and servant leadership, loving ourselves, loving our people and laughing. But I think sometimes it's quite easy to get channeled into the depths of the breadths because take our current environment now, it's hard, it's crushing on the soul. So finding the gaps of light to be able to enjoy and embrace the sunlight because we love what we do.
Kia ora. A couple of weeks ago, Te Whānau, we Nai Tamarawa hosted a dinner as part of Uenukurangi Symposium. It was great to just go in, see everybody dressed up, take photos, have a beautiful meal. Just something as simple as that was quite nice to just come back to, a sense of enjoyment, I suppose. That sometimes it's just hard. Aurea, any kōrero?
Yeah, managing my mismanagement. I'm sure the whānau can relate to that. It's just a matter of doing it, like Rangi said, and Kiritapu. We sort of, I'll speak for myself, you have certain expectations that are put on you, and whether you do it individually or with other people alongside of you, at times it can become hectic. But then I think about our forefathers and foremothers, what they suffered and what they endured. And just try and remember, those ones that have gone, did their job, we need to carry their job on. when I get time, it's basically taking my baby, my 4-legged child.
Mm.
We go down to Te Maho, down Sulphur Point,
Nice.
and just sit in the water. She swims around just to be able to take whatever hara that I have. Sometimes the hara comes back, but again, it's managing that mismanagement of it, but always remembering that a bigger fight was done before my time, our time.
And I just want to, I'll just build on that. And firstly, I'll acknowledge Charlie, who was the chef who cooked that beautiful seafood boil.
I told him.
Which no doubt drew the majority of Tauranga Moana to the smell of puria. But for me, what I took away from that hui is that we have some fantastically talented people within Ngāti Ranginui. Not all of them are living in Tauranga, they are living all over New Zealand, and some of them have had experiences all over the world. So the question becomes, how do you use these people to push our iwi forward? Because it seemed like a lot of the kōrero coming out at the tables was aspirational, visionary, whakaaro. People wanted to talk about entrepreneurialism. They wanted to talk about how we push forward as people, talk about our reo, talk about whare wānanga, all that sort of thing. So my brain already went to, okay, how do we strategize? How do we form a blueprint? And how do we execute? 90% of strategy is execution. So the next step is for us to execute and use people to push forward as Ngāti Ranginui.
Yeah, lots of ideas came out of that dinner, Charlie.
I think there's 3 words for me: obligation, duty, and sacrifice. As Maria was talking about, we have an obligation to deliver, to continue to deliver, our tikanga, our kawa, everything that our tupuna fought hard to maintain and retain. We have a duty to our whānau and our hapu and our whānau. But with that comes sacrifice, and if I'm honest with you, in the last couple of weeks, the stark reality of that sacrifice has come to the fore with my own whānau. Kirsty and the boys sacrifice everything for me to be able to perform the duty and obligations of the roles that I've in some cases chosen, but also in some cases inherited. And that's it's very hard to manage. They'll tell you that I don't know how to say no, but I've managed to in the last few months, and it's upset people. I've managed to step myself out of kaupapa that I don't think will do anything for my wairua or my whānau as well. And so in doing that, people have been hurt by me not being there, but I don't have to be everywhere, as I said before. And so, those are, I'm learning, I'm not there, around the obligation, duty, and sacrifice.
Yeah, there's got to be that balance.
Yeah, can I just build on that, Charlie? Because I just want to comment on that, because the tikanga and the reo stuff has come up a few times. And so 32.8% of Ngāti Ranginui uri are able to hold a conversation in te reo Māori. So I just want to give everyone here props that has been part of that and the people that came before us. However, less than a quarter of Ngāti Ranginui own their own houses, or a portion of those houses, and only 19% own more than $70,000 in annual salary. So my blinkers are going off a little bit, because I think you're doing, and Modi are doing, a fantastic job with the real revitalization strategy. For me, it's how do you build structures and strategies so that people are getting into homes, so that people have higher incomes and all that sort of thing. So I think that's something that we need to think about.
Yeah. Do you think that's quite the maunga to climb in terms of?
Well, it is, but we've got to start somewhere. 32.8%, we celebrated that. The fact that we topped the country, and from the last census around, people who could hold a conversation in te reo Māori. But, do we see that on our marae? Really? Do we see that on our marae? Or like every other aspect of our iwi, or iwi in general, do we still have people holding spaces that they could step aside?
What's the demographic of that percentage? Is it the young people learning te reo? Is there a demographic?
Well, 70% of our population is under 27.
Right, there we go. So it's the kohanga.
Yeah,
Definitely. I think there's 2 things that kind of probably stem from that. Is one, it's really celebrating our successes. We've got to go crazy when there are gains to be made. Ngāti Ranginui, we're performing Te Matatini. We're on that stage representing Tauranga Moana, really. That's a success. These statistics that show our iwi has the greatest portion of reo speakers success. Looking at some of our marae that have the greatest depth and breadth in the moana of speakers on our pai, kai karanga, success. And I think with that too, there's sort of a separate or a separate and aligned question, what is success for us? And it comes back to that question that Rangi was just raising. What is wealth to us?
Yeah.
So, and that was a question that came up in multiple ways at our dinner a few weekends ago, is, okay, wealth can look like lots of people speaking in Aoreo. Wealth can look like, you know, having a lot of cash that's reinvested back into our marae. What does wealth look like? And I think that's probably a key question for us to really focus on when we're doing that paitawhiti visioning.
Yeah, I remember seeing something on social media saying, I would never own a house. To own a house is silly, just rent. And I'm like, wow, really? So people don't necessarily see home ownership as wealth. Maybe they see worldwide travel as fulfilling them. So I just want to come back to Rangi's point about, you know, rawe o te taha reo, engari, for the financial growth of Tauranga. Obviously, you're not seeing that here amongst our people. Rangi.
I'll just elaborate on that. And
Yeah.
I'm always an and person. So if you can, why not be fit, healthy, and be able to speak to Reo Māori and have a pretty nice house? We should have the option to have things. We shouldn't have our capacity or our means limit us from what we want to be achieving. If you ask most people, they would say, I want to own a house. The person on social media probably just says that because they don't really have enough money to buy a house. So the job as government, because this is not just iwi's job, there's another trend in Te Ao Māori where Māori organisations replace the role of government because government is failing. I don't think that's the role of iwi. Iwi is to build aspiration and opportunity within the rohe over and above what the government is doing. So it's an and for me. People should be owning houses and have the option to learn reo. They should be able to be paid to be a teacher in te reo or be an accountant if they want to be. And we should be there to push them along if we can.
You have anything, Sarah?
No, I was just going to go flick to the questions on the a couple of questions there. So how does Uenukurangi translate to change on the ground for our people? So we've got a couple of questions in the chat.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Sorry, that question's coming in from our Zoom, so just
sorry.
ask it once again, sorry.
How does Uenukurangi translate into real change for people on the ground? So for whānau, what does it mean in the context and the lives of our whānau in Tauranga Moana?
I think I'll just take one avenue and leave the others, the other part of the topography for my cousins here. But the one avenue for me is that through Uenukurangi, I'm hopeful that we will be able to work with our people to, I guess, really shape the way we think, and that the entities aren't the iwi, the people are. You know, when we refer to the iwi, don't refer to us as an entity or a construct of the government. Yeah, and Uenukurangi is I guess one of the areas I want to focus on is how do we shift that mindset to think that the entities can do everything for us. You know, whereas without the people, make what their tangata, then we don't have anything. And so that's for me. There's a number of others, but yeah,
Does that sort of begin with the representatives of these entities who represent hapu?
Yeah, and this drove out of a hui at Tūteranga. This whole thing drove out of an AGM. We used to have our three entities have an AGM together. The entities were constructed by the government, by the way, out of different parts of legislation, except the Runanga. But I do want, and at that AGM, we had 3 AGMs, 3 visions, 3 boards. You know, we needed 30 governors. We looked at it back then. It was costing us around about 600,000 to manage those boards. You know, and that was nearly 10 years ago. That's $6 million that we could have invested somewhere else if we're thinking like that. But the other part to that is that, you know, we had 3 visions, and there was a very, I remember standing up in that hui and saying, why do we have 3 visions? You know, and this is where this was born. I think that was 2015. This whole thing was born. So I guess the reality, how does Uenukurangi become a reality? It's up to us to make it a reality, not wait for people to tell you what it looks like or boards to tell you what it looks like, but drive it from the people.
Kia ora, tēnā koe, Charlie. I'm going to, probably this might be one for you, Rangi. Is our hapu, another question, is our hapu centric financial and land settlement for our Ranginui settlement an impediment to growing an economic base that will help us succeed as iwi and hapu? Might be for you, Charlie.
I got it. I'd love to refer to that, actually. Ngā mihi to whoever sent that question. So I just want to disclaim this a little in that hapu centric the lifeblood of all iwi in New Zealand are marae, and the beneficiaries of marae. Benefits from claims, whether they be hapu or iwi settlements, should always flow through to people and marae. But how they flow through is a different concept. So hapu centric, a lot of people think, okay, I got 25 million bucks, I got 5 hapu, 5 million each, boom, walk away. That is not a hapu centric claim strategy from my perspective. A hapu centric claim strategy is how do you distribute benefits to hapu and marae in a way that they can be distributed in perpetuity. They get $1 million a year forever, and that builds every year. And I'll use a couple of examples here. So my mate, Pahia, he won't mind me dropping his name, he's down in Ngāti Ranginui. Their claim wasn't significant. He's the man anyway, so their claim wasn't significant, but he told me that they had the option in their hapu-centric settlement to distribute the money, and everyone would have got a 70-inch flat screen TV. They chose to retain a portion and pay out a portion, grew the pūtea centrally, and then paid. Now they're able to pay a distribution every year. If we go down to Ngaitahu, marae get $1 million every year. 500K need to be reinvested into the marae, and then marae has the option to invest in whatever they want, whether it be a deal, all those sort of things. So I think that we should maintain the intention of the kaumātua that set this claim, keep it hapu-centric, but make sure that we establish structures to make sure that there are perpetual benefits that flow to marae wā ke tonu atu.
Kia ora, tēnā koe rangi. Any other whakaaro from our pai, kōrero?
The only thing I'd probably add to that, and look, I mentioned at the outset, sort of as a young lawyer, looking through the backdoor lens of a whole range of different hapu and iwi and the way that they structured themselves. I remember when our settlement was coming through, being so supportive of it being a hapu-based settlement, and so almost heart-wrenched that it was going to be distributed amongst all of these different entities that would require separate structures, separate governance structures, that would require then, and that each of the asset base would flow through to become essentially such a small asset base for us to be able to build as marae, as hapu, and as iwi. And I think, you know, we're still at a formative stage at the moment where we have lots of choices to make as an iwi. What does consolidation look like for us if we're just focusing on that paitawhiti? What are our aspirations? What does that wealth look like again? Now, we just had Donna Flavel from Waikato Tainui, who is also an Urio Ngāti Ranginui. She came and spoke to us about, for them, they invest at least $450,000 into each of their marae. We saw, if you were watching those settlements, there were a whole range of challenges and problems at the outset. There was heaps of failure, until there was, you know, a vision, the clear strategy that enabled them to weave and grow and grow and grow. And it takes time to do that, and takes trust to do that. But I think that's where we're really at right now, is how do we consolidate ourselves? How do we bring ourselves, how do we weave ourselves together to be able to leverage, whether it's economically, whether it's our political position in not just, you know, with government agencies, Te Ao Māori, how do we leverage the position? How do we leverage ourselves for the greater good of Ngāti Ranginui?
Kia ora, tēnā koe, Kiri Tapu.
I think I believe in the fundamentals of the aspirations of our kaumātua of the time.
Absolutely.
You know, they knew they were planting trees, the shade of which they would never enjoy. But I think for a lot of them, for a lot of our kaumātua, they passed before the foundations of the hapu-centric model could be solidified. And so, and I've said this publicly before, I think their idea of a hapu-centric model has been hijacked by individuals who have individual aspirations, and that's what we've got to stop, and that's what we've got to call out, and that's what we've got to change. I also think, you know, without hanging our dirty washing out for the whole multi of course, but you know, I think that the shift has to come wealth, yes, economic wealth, economic growth, but I truly believe that wasn't in their foresight for a number of those kaumātua. Certainly the ones I used to talk to, it was around who we are and where we stand as hapu, as marae, and building that pride in themselves so that we connect together as a stronger iwi. That's what I truly believe their vision of a hapu-centric was. But I agree that we distribute it too sparsely. You know, we live in Tauranga. You know, some hapu will get 4 million. That'll buy you a toilet on a little block of land here, you know. And so, yeah, what are we going to do, you know, to ensure that we stay collectivized in that space?
Kia ora, tēnā koe, Charlie Otira, tēnā koutou e te pai kōrero. We're going to have a little bit of a tiny bit of a whakatā break e te whānau. We're going to go to our missing panelist, who we wish was here, Chelsea Winstanley, who she spoke to us earlier this morning. And yeah, let's have a listen to her kōrero.
Kia ora te whānau, ko Chelsea Winstanley tōku ingoa, Te Reo Ngāti Ranginui, Ngāti Rangi. I am a
Tātou e te whānau. Apologies, we understand that te rapia kāre technical hiccup that some of you may not have been able to hear, Chelsea, so more tamato here. But yeah, what does she say? Why?
Yeah, so the whanaunga has a kōrero about do the why that makes you cry. So that's, you know, you guys have really canvassed that really well.
Thanks, Dad.
Yeah. And so, you know, in her domain of storytelling as a filmmaker, so she brought those things together. And again, we apologise for the technical sound difficulties at home, but we are aware of the people who are participating at home or participating by watching, and we wanted to signal or just celebrate again that there is an iPhone prize for today's kōrero, an iPhone 16 to one of you lucky viewers. One, 3 conditions. 1, you had to register for the webinar. 2, you have to, in the chat, you have to list your success. So we talked to that kaupapa with our panelists. So what were your seeds of success? What things do you think comprise success? So we want, that's the first question, and then we'll cover the second one. Basically, you're answering the same questions that our panelists asked, but your response goes in the chat, and then we'll draw the winner at this next week's upcoming board meeting.
Ka pai. So back to the pātai. Thank you so much for typing in your pātai via the Zoom chat. Our next pātai, maybe this is for those of us who have lived outside of the moana. What does cultural identity look like for those who live outside of Tauranga moana? Do you want to share your experiences?
I think one of the ways that our whānau can engage with themselves as ranginui, let alone tauranga, is first, you know, register with your hapu and your marae.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't do that, then you don't know what your hapu, your marae is actually doing on the marae, within the hapu, the activities and the learnings that come from that. Here's an example, 1990 something, Waikato University, we formed the group Tauranga ki Waikato. And so that group was formed to keep our relationships close, but also it's produced a platform for learning about our histories, our culture, our ancestry. One of the good things that a few hapu are doing now is engaging in the space of wānanga. A lot of them have been doing that for 20 years plus. And with technology, and I'm not very good at that, whānau, I'm not going to lie. With technology, there's the means like what's happening now, this webinar, Zoom, for whānau to participate, but also for our hapu that manage those spaces for our descendants living out. Think about their learning needs, their cultural aspirations as well, being part of our own hapu and our own iwi, because if we can provide that for our whānau that live outside of Tauranga, they will be culturally richer, living in a space that they can call their second home, that when they come back, hopefully they come back, keep coming back, that they only enhance the pool that remained home. So I think cultural identity can be accessed in a number of ways, but first and foremost, you know, register as a hapu, and if not your iwi, as an iwi member.
Perhaps we have some whānau, kia ora, Kahi. Perhaps we have some whānau from Wellington. I lived there for 8 years and we called ourselves ahika from afar. So we would have our little tauranga moana dinners. And I must say, one way that I wanted to connect back home, especially when I couldn't make every tangihanga, was koha. There was one means, but yeah. Rangi, any thoughts about cultural identity if you don't live here?
One comment I'll just make about Maudi's answer is that I go by the mana motu hake te kāinga ko tahitanga ki te ao. So usually when I am home, I'm a pāpaka o rangataua, kaore e kore. Engari i a mātou e haere ki tā wāhi ko tauranga moana tātou. So my view is that when we present ourselves outside our rohe, it should be as tauranga moana. We always have our whakapapa, our deep roots here, and those come out more so when we're at home. Being outside your rohe, I think there's a push-pull here. I think there should be a push from iwi to make more mediums like this available to those living outside of rohe, from webinars to online events, making sure that we have our registered, updated, and a good comms plan. And then that usually is the flame that stokes the fire for people to come back home. So people say, you know, people should be coming home, they should be doing this, doing that. We've got to give them a bit of a reason to. And that starts with coming home initially to visit. And then the long-term thing is around having jobs and meaningful employment for them. And how can we supplement the government in creating those opportunities for our people?
Kia ora, kiri tapu.
I think too, just to recognise that it's different ways that people connect to their Ngāti Ranginui hanga. And I just really want to acknowledge all of my cousins who were born and raised on the whenua, and, you know, every single weekend having to be in the kitchen, you know, cooking, cleaning, doing everything that those of like myself, we were outside of the rohe, and we didn't have to have all of those roles and responsibilities and obligations. And I see the weight that has on my cousins. Yes, there are some privileges that come with that, but there's also a lot of obligation that comes too. For those of us that were brought up outside of the rohe, I was fortunate. My mum and them all lived at home, but I was brought up outside. Now that's a nice tight hononga to be able to slingshot you back into the activities of your marae, your hapu, etc. But there's also there's a lot of barriers for those that don't have people living in the kāinga to be able to wrap them up and bring them home. I think I look at, you know, looking at those successful models or what's good practice. I love it when our iwi can open up the doors through a whole range of different mediums, whether they're waiata, whether they're heke, whether they're wānanga, whether they're whatever they are, but being able to open up the doors and say, you are us, we are you, and come home. We also saw too, through that the dinner that we had the other day, and Rangi just mentioned it, man, so many skills, from our artists to our weavers to our darkers to our builders to our kaiako to our, you know, bankers to our whomevers. You know, we just are rich in skills. Now, if people feel like they can feed and weave into our iwi, we are all richer for it.
Kia ora, tēnā koe.
Yeah, I think I share the same views as everyone else on the panel, but I also think that, you know, in some way the question has to be asked to the person asking it as well. What are you doing to connect to your whānau, your hapu and your iwi?
Reciprocity.
Yeah, it
right?
is reciprocal. And yeah, I talked about it, duty and obligation before, is the expectation that everything you want to know has to be taught by the people who live at home.
Yeah,
You know, and what part of that is your responsibility
Yeah.
to go and find it. How do you connect with your people? Just about every marae has a Facebook page now.
Yeah.
But one thing I'd caution is telling the haukanga what to do.
100%.
You know,
Yeah.
and that comes through quite strongly on Facebook pages. You know, just be careful how you say things, how you portray things. If you've got experience, that's wonderful. You know, but if you want to say it, come home and do it. You know, what a kaumata used to always say, you know, don't tell me, show me. And I very much hold that view, and that view might not align with other people's view, but I don't care. But no, I shouldn't say that. But you know, it's more around, and that's the question I would ask the person asking the question. Yeah, and having seen and having operated and run marae, you know, you often get, you know, you have to be very patient with people who live away from home, who come home, because they come home with expectations that our tikanga will change to their desires or wishes, you know, and so it's that. What are you doing?
Yeah.
To connect? What are you doing to help? And you can do that from afar in a number of ways if you simply ask.
Kia ora, tēnā koe, Charlie. Mauri, I want to bring you into this when, especially with why? With you know, kei te mohi o tātou, kei te mimiti haere te pai tapu. So we have younger, very skilled real speakers. I mean, we're doing awesome in terms of the statistics, but they want to, you know, be a kai kōrero straight away on the marae, for example. Do you think that's happening within Ranginui, and how do we approach that?
You would have to ask me that question. And I apologise to the people listening right now before I respond.
Me tatari or do we?
Me haere ngātahi.
Me haere ngā
I think there's still a role for our old people,
Kia ora.
but to be the mentors that they need to be.
Yes.
And I say that they need to be those mentors. And it's more about ensuring that while we have the other generations, the younger generations waiting in the wings, there's still some learning that they can adhere to and learn from our people that are still alive. In the same position, in the same token, it's almost like we can't be egocentric about it. Simply because there are kawa that need to be maintained on our marae. And if, for example, some of our old people aren't able to make it, and you and I both know that, you know, with the availability of our kaumātua, we have to allow our young ones the opportunities in which to occupy those spaces. But I definitely think it is a dual relationship between our old and our rangatahi and our younger generations. And I think learnings fold into one another. And if, you know, just in terms of your question, there's a time and the place for everything. Yeah.
Kia ora. Tēnā koe, Maria. Sorry again. Anytime.
Oh no, I'm enjoying the wonderful discussion, you know, so there's a whole, well, I'm connected to whakamārama, we all know this, we've never hidden that, but there's a wonderful exploration of the connections and the way that, the way that our hapu and whānau keep those things, and, you know, speaking to, so on that is the opportunity for bridges and pathways to those different experiences. And so that idea of training, that idea of supporting in the learning environment is really, really important for the iwi, regardless of the field that you've come from. So you're talking from a real space, you're talking from a finance space, you're talking from a government politics space. Those are really good.
Ka pai.
I was looking at that question.
Yes, shall I read it out?
And I feel like asking who wrote the question.
Can't wait.
And te kapa ko Ngāti Ranginui bring us together as an iwi. That is correct. One was the vessel, the other one was about identity. Just quickly want to touch on that. 1989, the kapa was formed. You know, my kuia being staunch in Ngāti Rangi Te Raroa saw a need within a community to harness our youth at risk. Now, when I say youth at risk, a lot of them were getting into trouble with the law. And so this group was formed to harness our youth at that time. What it taught was resilience, perseverance, that they could overcome anything if they put their mind to it with the supports around them. And so I just want to take this, what do you think we can leverage from those kaupapa te build our ranginuitanga? We need to work across hapu marae. I can't stress that enough i te whānau. If I want to be a staunch ranginui queer growing older and older, I want to be able to tap into Ngāti I want to be able to tap into Pirirako and to all our other hapus, because we all have skills that can benefit this thing called ranginuitanga. And, you know, whether it comes from our generations now, or our mokapunas and kids that are coming through, or we pull back some of our old ones to support that space, we need to concentrate on building our own people together. You know, sort our own backyards out first. Rangi, huri is ready, Rangi. We've got your tamea ready. Are your economic people, your finances, your accountants ready to come through and teach our people? That's true trade and exchange across our hapu. So it's about utilising the skills within our marae that exist for the betterment of the tomorrow and Ngāti Ranginui moving forward.
Kia ora, tēnā koe Mauria. So that was a question e te whānau that came through our Zoom chat. I might bring in Kiri Tapu for this next question. What about te taiao? The port expansion is on the Crown's fast track list. What is Ngāti Ranginui's vision around our vulnerable taiao?
Yeah, so there's two questions in that one. So I'll address the first. What about our taiao? Well, we are nothing without te awanui. We are nothing without our whenua. You can't be mana whenua without whenua. And so our well-being is so intrinsically tied up into our taiao that to me, it's got to be at the forefront. It's one of the forefront priorities for us, all of us right now, particularly in the current climate that we're experiencing. Our urupa falling into the waters. We have, you know, we're so much vulnerability and risk. Our taiao has changed completely over the last 20 years and will continue to do so. So to whomever put that question up, I think that if that was a consolidated focus, if we were talking about wealth as being one of our whāinga for Ranginui, that's the wealth of our taiao, I think that our iwi would be in such a strong position. The second part is about the Crown's fast track list and the port expansion. Both phases are on that list. And what are the impacts and implications for us? Well, the fast track is an enabling piece of legislation that will almost certainly enable those two tranches of the port to be expanded. Yep. So I'm a pragmatist, and you go, well, what do we therefore do as an iwi to respond? One, there's a collective strength in being able to work with all of our relations in this, in Tauranga Moana, to form a real advocacy on behalf of Te Awanui. That's got to be collective based and pushed forward. In my view, we are stronger together when it comes to Te Awanui, and that's the thing that connects us all. Secondly, I think that there is, when these things go through, our role is to really stand up and fight like tooth and bone for the best kind of conditions that we can get out for Te Awanui. So there's multiple tranches of work for us to do. And that pragmatic side says, okay, well, these things are happening. Therefore, what are all the different levers that we need to pull to be able to get the best for the well-being of our one?
I can just build on that just a tiny bit. The port of Tauranga transactions is a very topical thing at the moment. And I completely agree with Kiri Tapu in that the livelihood of Te Awanui is directly correlated with the livelihood of ourselves as Tauranga Moana people. We don't do ourselves any favours sometimes, though. We can be presenting and advocating collectively as Tauranga Moana, but in several instances against the port, we haven't. And I don't think that's done ourselves any favours. There's been a few partai in the last few months around, you know, what does the phasing look like with strategy? I think the pai tawhiti has to be alignment across all of Tauranga Moana as far as what does 2050 look like in Tauranga Moana? What does 2100 look like in Tauranga Moana? How do we get on that waka? The thing with alignment You create scale and you exert influence. When Waikato Tainui go into a negotiation, they represent 64 marae. Tremendously powerful, tremendously powerful. No consent gets passed from Hamilton all the way up north unless they are at the table and they are inputting. Same with Ngāti Whātua in Auckland. So I think that there is an external push here with the government, absolutely, but there's a lot we can be doing internally. And it starts with alignment within Ranginui, starts with structural alignment. Are our structures fit for purpose? Do they allow us to push and achieve our visions? And then once we get that sorted, it's probably a wider discussion. Is there room for a collectively based iwi structure or even some sort of group that allows us to advocate for big things like this? Because if we had that right now, I can tell you now we would have more leverage with the port.
And just to acknowledge too, there was that foresight and wisdom by those who went through that settlement process to form things like Tauranga Moana Iwi Collective. Now that hasn't come into fruition for multiple factors, which we don't need to get into, but that has been a whāinga for the iwi of Tauranga Moana, and for our generation, how do we build on what the work that's already been done?
Yeah, I think we were at a dinner recently, not the dinner where I took, but this one was equally as nice. No, but
Not as good, not as
we were at a dinner and this conversation came up, and it was, what is our unifying factor of Tauranga Moana? And it is the harbour. Everything we and as Kiritapu said, we are seeing misalignment of those natural phenomena in the birds and the trees and the way the water's flowing. But just directly in relation to the port, Ngāti Ranginui contested the expansion to the port expansion in the Environment Court, and that process is still ongoing. We will absolutely, have something to say in the fast track. Bearing in mind the reality is the port's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
It's listed as one of the projects of national significance. So there's no way they're going to get rid of it. And how do we protect the fundamentals that we operated on in challenging that, and also in 2011 when our Kaumātua challenged it, as protection of the taiao, the reclamation of the Takitimu story. From that comes a lot of flow down. And also, how do we collectivise as Tauranga Moana, and do it with integrity? How do we do that with integrity?
I think that's a great segue to bring us to the home stretch of the webinar today around. So there are challenges and whirlpools on any course. What is the key challenge or obstacle that you see in your field, and what's one take-home message or what's one call to action you see and want to socialise with the rest of our really watching tonight? So just to bookend it, what are the obstacles that you see in your space, and then what's the call to action for you from your heart, the why that makes you cry, put that in together and bring it home. I'll start with you.
Okay. I think what's the biggest barrier? It's people and egos. People and egos, and how do we deal with that? Get out of the way. I think that that we are on the precipice of change as an iwi. We have the kaumātua who are champions of kotahitanga. We have the kaumātua who are champions of who realise and understand what's coming, what the new wave looks like. The data tells us as an iwi, 70% of our population is under the age of 27. So I go back to my statement I made earlier. We have to realise the aspirations of those kaumātua, but equally meet the expectations of the younger generation. And for some people, they're holding on to this false sense of power. That doesn't exist. Because if we are true to our tikanga, true to kawa, true to whanaungatanga, then it takes all of us to make this iwi operate. And so I say that it's ego, get out of the way.
Thank you, Charlie. Charlie.
What was the question again, sorry?
What's the key obstacle you see to in your field in this area? What's the key obstacles, and then what's your call to action?
Okay. My area, I just think one of the key obstacles is the individual themselves. You're thinking, lots of people think that it was hard, but it takes a lot of commitment, it takes support, and sometimes as a learner, you become your biggest enemy, and you don't allow yourself to achieve. Believe in it, Believe in your reo, believe in from whom and where you come from, because at the end of the day, those learnings, those experiences will hold you in good stead. I suppose what I like to see in the future is our babies and our rangatahi take the reo to a new space.
Digital care.
Yeah, and I think now in terms of the question that I've just seen up there, where do rangatahi fit in there? You'll be fitting across a lot of the phases now. Don't ask me what those phases look like, but I can just see for reo, you fellas will be the ambassadors of what that looks like for us moving forward.
Kia ora. So firstly, I just want to comment on Charlie's comment, and I completely agree. 70% of Ngāti Ranginui under the age of 30. He opened his statement in regards to the kaumātua champion ko taitanga. It's the rangatai that are champion ko taitanga now. Iru kapa kingi, tore te kaumarua, mai o ana tau. Rana tērā hiko I whakarite. So for me, we need to be continuously catering towards what that 70% sees the future. The second one I would say is that Tauranga Moana has been the fastest growing population for the last 30 years. Only last year did Hamilton grow at a faster rate than us. We had the biggest rate of economic growth and infrastructure growth, and somehow we have missed that bus as the iwi of Tauranga Moana. We need to be at that table. So the challenge is, how do we become involved in the economic development of our region? And for me, if we had been involved in those 30 years, we would be telling the port what to do rather than being told what to do right now. And I think thirdly, and I'll just sort of tackle to the manuka here, we need to fix our own whare before we go into those big spaces. Ngāti Ranginui has too many entities, it has too many governors. So the first thing that needs to do is we need to consider our strategy and what's the best structure to move us forward. And then sky's the limit.
Kia ora, tēnā koe rangi. Peri tapu.
Biggest stumbling block always is ourselves. And when we are looking at our own pito, it's easy to humble. If we have our chin up, focused on that faitawhiti, what does the wealth of Ngāti Ranginui look like? Culturally, economically, environmentally, socially, we've got very clear whāinga on each of those. Then all of our decisions need to be filtered through that lens. Like Rangi just said, we don't have the political punch that we should do in this rohe. Why? Multiple reasons, but we have the opportunity right now. If we were consolidated, collective, and had that very clear vision, like I said, where everything is filtered through, we would be an immeasurable force. And that's what I think we all collectively hope for our iwi.
Tēnā tātou katoa e te pai kōrero. I'm just going to check. Do we have time for one question? Or that's the reason why they're still up there? Okay. We'll just go for one question and then wrap up. Sorry, we just want to...
Yeah, can be nice.
Yeah, we just want to acknowledge all of our whānau who are on Zoom. Tēnā koutou. Don't forget, we do have an iPhone 16 up for grabs there. Sorry, but I think...
Yes, your chance to win that is to watch the webinar,
register.
To register, and then to also put in what success looks like to you, and then also one of the challenges that you see for us as iwi. One success, one challenge.
And perhaps in a couple of weeks at the Uenukurangi Symposium, they might collate a few of those results. So the final question for our pai kōrero: what does mana motuhake look like for Ngāti Ranginui now and in 2040? And within the vision of Uenukurangi. So we're projecting, what, 15 or so years? 16. Peri tapu, we'll start with you at that end of the couch.
Mana motuhake is in our hands. It doesn't depend on anybody else to tell us what to do or what it is that we need. So our mana motuhake is in the reclamation and ownership of our reo, of our whenua, of our sovereignty. Being able to be empowered to get off the breast, sometimes call it something else, of the crown, but that we are an independent nation, that we have things like energy sovereignty, that we have things like kai sovereignty, that we have things like whatever it is that we need to flourish and survive by ourselves, for ourselves, and pack that punch.
Kia ora, tēnā koe te tapu.
Yeah, mana motuhake, it's a loaded term, obviously. I was talking to a friend about this last week, and For me, mana motuaki is about choice. It's about freedom of choice. And when I think about it in real life, it's being able to sit at the table if you want to, and it's being about able to stand up and leave the table if you want to as well. We actually don't have the freedom of choice at the moment, many iwi across New Zealand, because there are certain dependencies on the government. So how do we create an economic base to create choice? How do we have the confidence in our identity through our reo and our tikanga so that we can get up and leave if we need to? And how do we do that whilst taking care of our moama and papatūānuku, of course?
Kia ora, tēnā koe rangi, mauria.
Whakatika tō tātou whare. Whakatū ngā pōpō. Erecting those posts, fixing our house, getting it in order, moving forward.
Kia ora, tēnā koe mauria.
Yeah, I'm going to use letters again and just say 4 R's. The first one is to remember. Yeah, remember that that colonial erasure precedes colonial amnesia, which only recovers memory by the sheer force of those who never forget. So we are the enduring memory of our ancestors, and we need to live that. The second one is resilience. We are resilient people. We know what mana motuhake looks like, and we know where we want to go. We know what good looks like, but we know what bad looks like as well. And so resilience is the second one. The third one is resistance. That we continue to fight for everything that we've talked about tonight, everything that's come up on that screen from our whānau, both in Tauranga and around the world, that we are there. And then the third one is revitalisation. The revitalisation of our stories, our narratives, and reclaiming them for us. That's what mana motuhake looks like. We have parts of it now, but certainly by 2040, I hope that we'll have it in its entirety.
Kia ora, tēnā koe, Charlie.
Yeah, again, just wrapping up and weaving in the points that we've discussed, they canvas again the deep connection and the deep value we have for one another, and the skill sets that we bring. And I think resoundingly you've consolidated that the mentality, the mindset is really, really important to where we drive that, and also making sure that our house is in order. And I think that's a really important point to make for our people who are listening at home, and as we face these challenges head on, and we embrace, home is the place where you feel connected, and home is where you are at your greatest peace. And I've always said in my family that peace is the gift of prosperity. So from being, pursuing prosperity, you can then afford peace on multiple dimensions. So again, thanks to the panel for their awesome kōrero. I'll hand it to you, Justin, lead us out, or closing remarks, however you want to wrap us up.
Yes, no, I think my co-host did perfectly. Just would like to acknowledge once again Charlie Rahere, Mauria Ngā Toko, Ranginui and Kiri Tapu Allen, and of course big mihi to Chelsea Winstanley as well. Go and check out Moana, debuts November 28. Hoi anō e te whānau, ko tātou pērā, ko mutu tā mātou nei kōrero I tēnei pō. Nā mihi nui kia koutou katoa, kua tūhono mai nei ki tēnei ātāmira Zui, Uenukurangi, Vision, Ranginui, kia ora tātou.
Kia ora.
Can we bring the team in?
Oh, bring it
Just quickly to wave out everyone, the team, just come in and say hello.
Just
There's a big team behind the
yeah,
cameras
there's a big
making
team.
everything work.
Yes, kia ora mea.
Oh, look, they're all too shy. They're like at the kitchen at the marae when you want to mihi to them, and then they won't come out into the dining room. But yeah.
Let them know the video be available.
Kei ngā ringa here. Ngā ringa tō haunui e mihi ana kia koutou. E mihi ana kia koutou e koutou I roto I tohu tēnei marae kāinga huri no te motu. Mihi ana kia kōrua. Nā kōrua I arahi matau I tēnei ahi pō. Nō reira kani aku mihi kia kōrua. I know it's not easy questioning people the caliber of them. But yeah, thank you. Thank you both. Uenukurangi, 14th to the 16th of November. And the skeleton program will come out tomorrow.
Yeah.
But we have a number of guest speakers coming from other iwi, from other parts that we've discussed tonight that will help us think about what tahitanga, what our Uenukurangi looks like for us as Ngāti Ranginui. But mihi ana kia tātou. Ka kite.
Ka kite? Ka kite. Ka kite.